right, everybody, thank you for joining us today, this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're at. I'm sure we've got people from all over the world here. The WireMock team is all over the world as well. We got a good one today for WireMock Live. We're going to talk about gRPC, which is pretty exciting. WireMock Live, if you're not familiar, we do this about once a month or so. It's a session where we show off new capabilities in WireMock Cloud, maybe advanced use cases or things that aren't as obvious that you can do with WireMock Cloud. We have a different topic every month. And then we take your questions. The questions can be on the topic at hand, or they can be any other WireMock Cloud question you want to ask while we're all gathered here. They don't need to be limited. I am Ethan. I work on product. We've got Dan, who's the head of customer success, that will be running y'all through a gRPC demo. gRPC right now, if you want to access it today, just shoot us an email. We'll put our emails in the chat, but it's pretty simple. Ethan at WireMock.io and Dan at WireMock.io. And we will get it turned on for your account, and then it will be made broadly available to everyone by the end of next week. But there's no reason to wait. If you want to try it out, contact us. We'll turn it on for you. So that being said, gRPC, if we talk about what it is in the WireMock Cloud context, if you're familiar with WireMock Cloud and what we do generally, right, we help you build these really powerful, advanced stateful mocking API mock servers that really replace test environments. They let you prototype APIs up front. They really work as a full service virtualization and API design platform. Normally, or I shouldn't say normally, I should say historically, that's been focused more on open API and unstructured APIs and maybe legacy APIs like SOAP. But now we're bringing the entire capability set to gRPC for the first time. So pretty much anything you can do with WireMock Cloud in the open API world, we're excited to have you now do it with gRPC. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and kick it over to Dan to get started with a demo. If you have any questions, drop them in the Q&A section of Zoom and we will answer them either at the end, or I'll jump in and bring them up to Dan midway. Other than that, all yours, Dan.
Great. Thanks, Ethan. Let me get my screen shared here into the demo portion. Great. So yeah, gRPC, right? It's a modern open source, high performance, remote procedure call framework. And when we work in gRPC, we deal typically with these proto files, right? A proto file describing exactly what our service does. So if I pull up the proto file here that we'll use during our demonstration, we can see in my notepad, we have this proto3 syntax, and then we're defining this service called the booking service, which has a booking request and a booking response and some formatting. Oh, rather basic here, proto file for our demonstration, but hopefully we'll show you the capabilities. Nice. So one of the requirements in working with gRPC mocking inside of WireMock is to generate a descriptor file. Now, a descriptor file in the gRPC world is a compiled representation of this proto definition file that is cross-platform. And we do that very simply using the proto-C tool. So if we look on my command line here, we have our myapi.proto file that I just shared with you, and we're going to use the proto-C tool to generate the output of a descriptor file, and we'll call that whatever we want to call it, in this case, my-api.descriptor. So simply by doing this, we'll get our file created. Now we can see that's available in our directory. And this is what we'll use inside of WireMock Cloud to create our mock API for this gRPC. So let's hop over into WireMock Cloud. And once this is enabled inside of your organization, either via the request before the GA release in the coming week or so, or after the GA release, when you click the Create New Mock, you'll see this lovely gRPC mock type available inside of your organization. We can click the Create gRPC. We'll go ahead and give this our typical name, just like it's a structured or unstructured or REST API. And that'll lead us to this screen. You'll notice the new icon of gRPC icon appearing in the left-hand navigation screen. And it's instructing us here to go ahead and make sure we generate that descriptor file and then go ahead and upload it. So I'll go find our descriptor file here. And we can see here is the one I just generated a little bit ago. And let's see, I'm actually in a different directory. So let me make sure I'm getting the one that we just did. Here's the one I just did today. Go ahead and open that up. And then we'll click our upload button. And we see that upload has been successful. We can now come over into our stubs section, and it looks just like our other interface where we'll go ahead and create our new stub. But we'll notice a few slight changes in the configuration on the request side. So we can still go ahead and give it a name, but now we'll notice that we have the service name. So a descriptor file can contain multiple services. So that's not an issue, but we do need to tell for WireMock Cloud for this stub, which service name inside of that descriptor file are we actually creating the stub for. So we only have one in our example today, that's the booking service. And then we can see we have the method name. Of course, each service can have one or more methods. So we would come down here and select the method that we're interested in creating a mock for, and that's our booking one. We still have our priorities feature built into WireMock Cloud because we still have things like body matching. Now, what's going on underneath the hood is, those proto requests that are coming over, or gRPC requests, are being serialized into JSON payloads. So our body matchers will be specific to the JSON payload as that serialization is happening automatically inside of WireMock. So your typical equals JSON or matches JSON path body matching strategies are going to be available in here, along with your nots and ignoring array orders and extra elements and all of those niceties that you're used to working with inside of WireMock Cloud. And then down below in our response section, you'll notice we have a slightly different approach here to handle the intricacies of gRPC, where you'll first pick a status you want to respond back with. You'll see the typical gRPC statuses are supported inside of here. With a status of OK, there's no reason for a status of OK, but when we have a non-successful response, anything other than OK, we're able to supply a status reason and use dynamic response templating when building out that status reason. So if we wanted to pull some information from the gRPC request body, we can certainly do that when formulating our response reason. Now, if we come to OK, that'll unlock the body response. And you can see that from that proto definition file and generated descriptor file, WireMock is just building out a very simplistic response body here for you to customize as you see fit. Outside of this, everything else is still the same with the delays inside of WireMock Cloud. So you can be comfortable in working with gRPC just like you work with your REST-based and HTTP based APIs. I'll move over into kind of a demo I've already built here, just to showcase a little bit about what something might really look like. So in here, I have a few different ones. So we'll look at the sunny day scenario. And let me go back, gRPC. Here's my demo gRPC. Here's our sunny day scenario. So this is a get a booking. We're going to be using that booking service with the method of booking name, priority of 5. We're going to be looking at a body matcher here, looking to make sure that the ID is not equal to canceled, as well as the ID is not equal to bad response. And if that's the case, we'll go ahead and generate a valid response body using that lovely dynamic response templating to pull out the ID from the original request that came in, use a timestamp of now for the created, and then randomly generate some participants using our random handlebar helper here, as well as a random range of 1 to 4 different participants coming back. So if we open up our test requester, you'll see that that's pretty much still the same here. We can pass in our ID. we're going to be calling the service name booking service with the method of booking. And we're going to be dealing with the request body as if it's a JSON payload. And when we go ahead and send that, we can see, just as we've asked for a random number of participants coming back with the ID being copied down using dynamic response templating. So as I send this multiple times, we can see how all of that is behaving just as we've asked WireMock to behave. You also notice there's this nice copy gRPC curl or gRP curl command down below. So if you wanted to run this inside of your command line, we can come over to our command line here. We can paste that in there. We'll see the format that's going to be requested, which is the payload, just as we have it in there. Here is our endpoint for our mock API, gRPC mock API, and here is the service path, so the service name and the method that's going on in there. If we go ahead and we run that, we can see a similar response working here via the gRP curl command. If we just look at a couple of the other ones for more of a rainy day scenario, we can see in this case, we're going to be looking again, booking service, the booking method. In this case, we're going to be looking for an ID of canceled just to force this canceled response type. So we can see in the response, we're going to have a status of canceled and a status reason of request was canceled for this one. So as you would expect, we come up here and we put our canceled ID in there and we hit send. We can see we're successfully getting back that status of canceled with our custom status reason being applied there. Now we also have some nice validation feature built into the gRPC mocking capabilities. So in this case, if many of you are familiar with our open API validation, where we validate the responses and the requests coming, the requests coming into a mock API and the responses being returned by the mock API against the open API schema or definition file to make sure that those are both valid, the request and the response. We're doing something very similar with gRPC because we have that descriptor file that's based on the proto definition. We can validate that a response that we've programmed WireMock Cloud to respond with is actually valid for that spec. So in this case, I've built a mock just to demonstrate this, where we'll look for an ID of bad response, and then down inside of our response here, we have this particular response. Now, let's go ahead and try and run this one, and we'll say our ID is bad response. We can go ahead and send and see that we are getting a status of unknown and an application error processing the RPC. And that's a result because what we've actually programmed in here for the response body is not valid per the proto spec that we've uploaded as part of that that conversion file to that upload, right? So this is being validated, and even though we asked for an OK message coming back, we're getting an application error processing the RPC because this is actually not a valid response per the proto spec that we've configured. And I'm actually not remembering entirely where what I changed inside of these two. So rapidly just going to take a look to see if I can find it real quick. Maybe, oh, there we go. So this is a participants with a Z coming back in our JSON payload response, where in our proto file, it's defined that it needs to be participants with an S. So we're seeing that that is a failure here. And coming into the request log, we can see that that's being called out with our typical validation warning being sent here. And here we can come down and see our gRPC validation. Property participants with a Z is not defined in the schema, and the schema does not allow additional properties. So we can see exactly what we're doing wrong thanks to the request log here. A couple other things just to point out before I take any questions here is we do have a sample project here on what a typical workflow might look like for a developer who is developing a gRPC application how, and inside of this project, right, how you could use something like GitHub Actions to automatically, upon check-in of code, go ahead and generate the new descriptor file programmatically, and then also programmatically upload it to WireMock Cloud, updating the descriptor file that's attached to your existing mock API. So this is a great resource if you want to look at, automating this workflow as changes happen to the descriptor file, making sure, or the proto definition, making sure that descriptor file is auto-generated and uploaded automatically into your existing gRPC mock API. Of course, we have inside of our documentation, gRPC mock API's overview, some helpful information here that you can review. Of course, we'll be expanding upon this as we get more and more feedback from our customers. And then you can expect an Academy video to be uploaded in the coming days for this feature as well. Very similar demonstration of what I've shown live here today. So with that, I will open the floor for any questions we might have received there, Ethan.
Yep, and we do have a few. And as a reminder, because we got time left, if any of y'all folks have questions, you can drop them in the Q&A section of Zoom here, and we will cover them. One question I see here is, trying to interpret the question, is there any difference in terms of on the account level between gRPC and OpenAPI? I guess, like, are there any things that are worth knowing if I already use OpenAPI functionality that will be different with gRPC?
That's a great question. And I'm not sure necessarily really how to answer that. We've talked a little bit about the validation, right, and the protection against creating false positives, false negatives by creating a payload that just would not happen because the spec wouldn't allow for it, right, the proto spec. So there's similarities there. As far as other capabilities, you should expect to be able to use pretty much all of the typical body matching features. You will see that today we also have the existence of data sources, so that would be in line with both REST and OpenAPI and unstructured mocking styles. So you still have access to data sources. You also still have access to both our scenarios feature as well as our newer dynamic state or stateful mocking capabilities. So you can store states such as the status of an application, or the status of a ticket or a reservation, or the balance of a particular account, right? If we're talking about account balances. So all of those would still be similar capabilities that are available, as well as our chaos settings are also available to make sure that you can have those production-like response times and generate random errors when you're getting into reliability testing.
Great. What else do we have here? This is probably another question for you. gRPC, well, the question is gRPC like on a different plan type or something? gRPC is included in all plan types. It's just another type of mock API that you can create. You can create now an open API. You can create an unstructured API, which covers things like SOAP or things that don't have a defined spec necessarily. And now gRPC is just another type of API that you can create. Is there any change to the template functionality with gRPC? I think the answer to that is no, but let's double check, Dan.
Yeah, let's go ahead and double check on that. So, the capabilities are still available. Sharing capabilities are there, as well as the saving API templates. They should work, as well as exporting and re-importing if you want to archive these to source code control or pass them along across WireMock Cloud accounts. You could export and import. Those capabilities should all still be there. Now, of course, we are in closed private beta. If you do have access and you find something is not behaving as you would expect it to be, please absolutely pass that feedback along. Any feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly. We love hearing feedback from our customers and our potential customers to hear what we're doing well and what we could be doing better.
We got another one here. They say, Anzar says, does gRPC, will it be available for the standalone jar version soon?
So that's a good question. I believe gRPC has been available for some time in the open source standalone jar version. As usual, I specialize in our WireMock Cloud capabilities and enterprise capabilities that are built on top of the open source piece. Please double check me on this, but I believe gRPC capabilities have been available either by community extension for some time, but that's something we would need to dig a little bit deeper in.
Yeah, so I think the guidance there is in the open source world, there is an extension you can use for gRPC. It's pretty mature at this point. Most of what Dan showed here, though, would not really be easily replicable in open source because, again, this is cloud. So for gRPC, for kind of the unit individual level work that you do in the open source, that is definitely available. For everything you've seen Dan do, the collaboration, the prototyping, the chaos, all the things we build on top of it, that's only available in cloud, but that's not just true for gRPC. That's true for all the functionality in cloud in general.
That's correct. And specific callouts there, data sources and stateful mocking are not available inside of standalone.
Yep. All right. One thing I do want to reiterate for everyone is if you log into WireMock Cloud today, you're not going to see this functionality. This will be broadly distributed next week. Means if you're watching this on a recording, you'll already have it because this recording is not going to go out before the actual wide release of it. But if you want to play with it in the meantime, again, feel free to shoot us an email. We would be happy to grant you access. All right, we'll give maybe 10, 15 more seconds here to see if anyone else has any questions. gRPC is an exciting one for us. Pop that video back on. There we go. gRPC is an exciting one for us because we've been wanting to do this for a long time. Like we said, the open source supports it. It brings everything we already do to this new audience of teams working with gRPC. But it itself isn't a ton of new things, right? So if you're using OpenAPI, it's everything you can do today for gRPC, which is huge. So we've been pretty excited to show it off, and we want to get your feedback as well. So we work closely with everyone as design partners. But when you get in there and try it, or if you want to do a feedback call with the members of your company that use gRPC, we are all ears. We love that hands-on feedback, and this is day one of gRPC for us, right? So there's definitely going to be more we do with it in the future.
So Ethan, real quick, let me put you on the spot as product owner here. What type of upcoming things can our users be looking forward to in future WireMock Live sessions in the coming 1 to 3 months?
In the coming 1 to 3 months, it will depend on sequencing. I think we've got some real world demo applications we've been developing to kind of show you how to apply WireMock Cloud to kind of a real application. And I say that because us, like a lot of companies, right, our demos make sense if you know what you're looking for. But what we've been trying to put in is actually giving you a real sample app that works just like a real application and showing you how to layer WireMock Cloud on. So we'll probably do kind of an end-to-end demo going with that demo so you can see what it looks like with a full application. We've also got some new functionalities on the roadmap. I don't think it's unfair to say that you'll see GraphQL coming out later this year with WireMock Cloud, and you can expect an announcement of that. If GraphQL is interesting for you, raise your hand. We'd love to chat with you about it. Can't give you an exact timeline yet, but you can definitely expect that to be coming up. And from there, anything we haven't covered, there's probably a lot more to mine with stateful mocking that we'll want to go back and expand on some of the more powerful things you can do there as well.
Awesome. That's exciting. And of course, if there's any guidance or topics that you would like to see us cover in a future WireMock Live, feel free to share those with us via email, via support chat, via the chat here on any one of these. We want to hear from our customers and what they're thirsty to hear more about, learn more about, take your deeper dives into. So please don't hold back. Again, we love to hear from our customers, how they're using WireMock, how they would like to use WireMock, and especially, where can we do better?
Absolutely. All right. Well, it looks like that's it for questions. So we will let everyone go. I want to thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you in about a month for the next WireMock Live. Have a good day.
Thank you all.